raised here in Baltimore. I am a graduate of Baltimore City College High School. I'm a very proud graduate of Baltimore City College High School, and an even prouder graduate of Howard University. Went to Howard, graduated from Howard with a Bachelor's of Science in Psychology. I have a master's degree in innovation and information technology with a concentration in project management from the University of Maryland University College, which is now University of Maryland Global Campus. And there's my big face on the screen. Thank you for that. And I'm a PhD student at Howard University in the Higher Education Leadership and Policy Studies program. And my research interest centers on this very topic of academic entrepreneurship, specifically centering technology transfer and commercialization at HBCUs. So all of that to say, I am really, really excited to have this conversation. I was asked to be here to share a little bit about my background. So you have the educational perspective, but I'll talk a little bit more about my journey as an entrepreneur. As my colleagues from the University of Maryland mentioned, I'm also an entrepreneur in residence. I am a National Science Foundation I-Corps regional instructor and mentor, and a national industry mentor. So I serve, very much within the National Science Foundation I-Corps program. I'm an advocate of it, and I've seen the transformative process that can happen for students when they go through, and faculty, when they go through NSF I-Corps. I started my journey after I graduated. I went straight to work for the American Psychological Association in the Science Directorate, and was not prepared, or I should say ill prepared, to navigate professional spaces coming out of the collegiate environment, right? There are a lot of nuances to working in professional environments that aren't taught on college campuses. And why that's important is because it sort of framed how I came to entrepreneurship. I then left the American Psychological Association and went back to Howard University. There is a theme here, right? I love our institution, and more specifically HBCUs. I was sharing earlier that my brother graduated from the University of Maryland Eastern Shore. My youngest brother just graduated from Fayetteville State University in North Carolina. And so we come from a long line of HBCUs in our family. I have family that are graduates of Morgan State University, of this very institution as well. So again, HBCUs and the importance of our institutions, the legacy, the traditions that we hold here are invaluable and important and necessary. And I hope that you all, those of you that are on the computers that I see that are not listening to me, thank you very much, I appreciate it, that are here on campus really take note of the education that you're receiving from this institution, right? And that you take the learnings and the information that's been shared with you all today, you take that and extend that out as you all are going about not only your day, but also thinking about what your future is going to look like, right? HBCUs are institutions that provide safe spaces. We hear that often, for minoritized students to learn, for faculty to have a space to educate, and they are essential to the fabric of higher education in our country and globally. So if you haven't heard that, if you're not quite sure what Coppin State University is and why it's important in the fabric of not only Baltimore City, but also in the HBCU landscape, I hope that that's helpful. I went to work at Howard University. I was the board administrator in the office of the Senior Vice President and Secretary to the Board of Trustees, which was an invaluable experience. I was directly working with members of Fortune 500 company execs at a very young age, and had responsibility for helping them navigate the campus as external but internal resources. I left Howard perplexed and frustrated with the lack of infrastructure technologically at our institution. And that sort of allowed me to go into and explore a master's degree in information technology with, again, a concentration in project management. And that really opened the door for all the things that I shared earlier about myself, and many of the things that you've heard today. Technology is the bridge. It is necessary. And if you are interested in technology, if you are interested in innovation, if you're interested in entrepreneurship, I highly recommend that you take note of the resources that were shared today, connect with all of us. We are passionate about these topics. I am passionate about this topic so much so that I am torturing myself slightly with the PhD program, because I really want to continue to investigate and explore just how powerful technology can be in our communities, right? And the work that we're doing, the work that my colleagues shared earlier, is necessary in helping you all determine what the future will look like, right? So many of us are currently doing this work and we love it and we appreciate it, but we want this information to extend out to you all. We want you all to take it and to utilize it in what you plan to do in the future with your careers. I graduated with a master's degree, and then I went to work for my first software company. And the story is that every 2 years I quit. And I quit every 2 years because I was underrepresented in the companies. I was the least paid, although I was the most senior and most educated. And I was not able to navigate sort of the trajectory, the traditional path of being able to, get the different titles that you're supposed to, or that you're told you're supposed to achieve after you were there for a certain number of years and you've gained a certain number of experiences. And of course, as someone that is very much involved in the education and instruction of others, I felt that I was not receiving the type of mentorship that I thought and felt I deserved for the resources that I was extending. So I left industry and started my own company. I am the CEO and principal consultant of Global Force Technology Consulting, which is a tech consulting and software development company. I started in 2018. My first 2 clients were psychiatrists who were very passionate about solving problems using technology, mobile technology in their specific communities. And I am honored to be able to provide that technical assistance and resource, and to serve as a resource to individuals who are looking to extend their work specifically using technology. I mentioned that I teach innovation and entrepreneurship. I'm very passionate about making sure that folks that look like me, that came from the background that I came from, understand the importance and the value of innovation and entrepreneurship, how it can be utilized to be transformative in your lives. What are the nuances, as Ala shared, of creating a startup, taking an idea that you had maybe just on a day walking on campus and actually seeing that turn into a revenue generating entity, right? That process is very involved, but it's necessary. And it's necessary for each of you in this room to think about how you all can take the work that you're doing, regardless and respective of your specific disciplines, how you can take that information and turn it into something that could potentially become an entrepreneurial venture. I started my company and ventured into the world of entrepreneurship, which is taxing. It is exhausting, but it is very fruitful and beneficial. And I'm very proud to stand here today, sharing with you all the challenges and the obstacles that I faced, of which there are and continue to be many. But I do it because I understand the value that it holds, not only for me as a Black woman in this community, in this space, but also for people in marginalized communities, right? It is the key to unlocking opportunity. We don't talk enough about what those keys and those opportunities are, which is why we're here, which is why we're extending these resources to you all. So again, I hope that you take this information, bits of my story, which also extend into the work that I'm doing now. I became intrigued by the process of being involved in the National Science Foundation, about what some of these resources look like on HBCU campuses, and now extending that into research as a PhD student. And will continue to write and educate and speak and talk about the importance of it, because it is necessary. I welcome any questions. I know there's an opportunity for us to connect later. But I'll just leave you with a couple of more tidbits of guidance and encouragement. This process, the education that you're getting right now, may seem like it's just another cog in the wheel. But 10, 20 years later, you're really going to look back and think about what you were doing today, what you're learning, what you're experiencing, your faculty members, how they're guiding you and how they're directing you. And hopefully you will take all of these learnings and share that with others. You'll become mentors, you'll become instructors, you'll become faculty, at other campuses, and hopefully you'll stay within the HBCU system and network. And when you do that, just think about the impact that you'll have and the impact the next generation will have and the next generation will have, because you took that first step to take those resources that you're gaining here today and extend them outward, as we were talking about earlier. So thank you very much. I hope that's helpful. I'm happy to answer any questions, and I really do appreciate being here, being back in Baltimore. I am here for my family, but now I have another reason to be here. So thank you. Yeah, I've been asked back. Are there any questions of me, of any of the resources that were shared today, my colleagues, Dr. Williams? I'm not shy, so I hope that you all are not shy, right? I'm going to start calling people out. Thank you.
As an entrepreneur in residence, when you have office hours and students have set up a meeting with you, what are the like top 5 questions that student and faculty teams actually ask you to begin the conversation?
That's a great question. So it ranges depending on whether it is a faculty member or if it's a student. So I'll kind of give context for both. But they're both similar. Students really want to know if their idea is a good idea. That's the question that I get the most. Is my idea a good idea? And my response is that it's not for me to determine whether the idea is a good idea or not, right? It's a part of our sort of methodology that we don't tell other students or faculty, we don't validate the ideas in that way. And actually, when it's your idea, it belongs to you, right? So it's something that you're curating. It's something that you're trying to figure out. Our job is to really help you navigate what we see as a process to unfolding the idea and actually turning that idea into, again, potentially a revenue generating entity. So that's one question. The other question that I get quite often is, how do I do this, right? And that question is loaded because it depends on the context and it depends on who's asking. And so what I try to do is get as much foundational information as I can from the individual. The majority of the time when I start my conversations, we don't generally just go into what I-Corps is, what NSF is, and how I can help them. I really like to ask, who are they, right? And how that frames how they're approaching the idea that they have. And that helps me understand how I can help navigate them through the process of unfolding what that idea is and what it might become. So again, what is this thing? What is entrepreneurship? How do I do it? I have to put that in context, and the context is, well, who are you? And sort of ask that back to the individual. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell me about what you care about, where you're from, and getting that information from them, that foundational information, then helps me to help them visualize perhaps how they could approach what they're doing, right? And not necessarily, again, making a judgment about whether it's good or bad, but what is the approach? What are the processes that you need? What are the steps that you can take for you to get from, again, ideation to revenue generation, if that's helpful. On the faculty side, they're generally coming with something that is already formed, and they're looking for actual resources. So I've had conversations that have started with, I have this piece of technology, or I developed this application, but I don't know how to translate what it used to be into what it needs to be for today, for a market for today. And how do I do that, right? And so then we talk about, well, what the actual technology is, and perhaps looking at specific resources that might be available either within the system, and also resources from me as an entrepreneur in residence that I could extend to them and help. Many of them are looking for, even though they don't have the term, product management assistance, right? Looking for a resource that can actually help them develop their product or their service. So I tried, to the extent that I can, to be a resource to them for that. And then on the other side, on the faculty end, the other question is, how do I get students involved, right? I have this innovation. But the students don't really seem to be interested. Do you have any advice and guidance for how I can get them more involved in helping me extend the research or extend out the innovation? And there, it's what I said earlier. It's really helping them to understand how valuable they are to the process and including them in discussions. I mean, oftentimes we're talking at students and not talking to students. I'm talking to students, even though I'm assuming you all are students. So I think that that's also helpful. It's just talking to the students and letting them know what the value is and how they can be a resource to them and what that resource can potentially produce. I think that those are the other two pieces to the faculty side that I tried to help frame for them.
So from a student perspective and your journey going through I-Corps, how did I-Corps benefit you and what was the return on investment?
It's a great question. So as a student, I didn't go through I-Corps. I didn't know anything about I-Corps as a student. I didn't become aware of I-Corps until I became an entrepreneur. And so because I didn't have that knowledge is the reason that I am in the various roles and that I serve in the way that I do, because I didn't have that mentorship, right? I navigated this very interesting world just based on my God-given talents, resources, and grit, right? Even though I'm not a fan of that word. And I found that to be challenging when it didn't need to be. And so what I'm doing now and what I hope I'm doing now is taking the lessons to what you were saying earlier, Janiva, about taking those lessons and extending them to others so that they don't repeat the same path that I had to forge many years ago, right? So that they actually have more knowledge, more assistance, more mentorship than I did. That's why I am a proponent of mentorship and I talk about and I write about the importance of mentorship. Because I didn't have that. So I-Corps wasn't something that was in my portfolio of resources as a student, but it is in my portfolio now as an entrepreneur in residence and as an academic entrepreneur. And so again, that's why we're here and that's why I'm here and hopefully it's helpful. Any other questions?
Great question. So what would you tell the students who are saying that I'm just here, I want to get my degree, I'm not going to be an entrepreneur. I just wanted to graduate, I'll figure life after. What can they do with the skills of entrepreneurial mindset?
Do that too, right? There's room and there's space for it all. We just need you all to do it. So what we hear and what I often talk about is the adverse of that, right? Go to school, get a degree, get a job, work, retire, maybe do some vacationing, read some books, take some naps, and then die, right? I mean, that's really what I was taught, right? That was the process. And I mean, you know, death is a normal part of the life cycle. But what I try to do now is really help students understand there is a different path, right? You can still go to college, you can still go to get a degree, you can still work, and you can also think about how you can take the information and the learnings and turn them into an entrepreneurial venture, right? And what does that actually mean? And where do you get the resources if you're interested in that path? So we've talked more about the adverse, but if students want to go to college, whether it's an HBCU or another institution, if they want to, you know, get that degree and then go and work for a corporate entity or work for a company or small business, do that, right? We want you to do it all. I think the bend on my side is incorporate entrepreneurship. Think entrepreneurially. Think about how you can take the work that you're doing and extend that out into your community and extend that out into the school system to what you were saying earlier, Dr. Williams, about reaching back to the K-12 system, you know, taking those resources and making sure that other students have exposure to either entrepreneurship or, again, your specific path as you're, you know, working in whatever your entities are. So it's both, and it can be a path of get a degree, get a job, work, retire, vacation, take naps, and then eventually sunset or it can be take these degrees and figure out how you can contribute to the economic development in your communities through creating a small business or being an entrepreneur. I hope that's helpful. Yes.
What obstacles did you have on your journey of becoming a CEO, and what kept you motivated to keep going?
Great question. So many obstacles. I will talk about sort of, we were having this conversation with a couple of colleagues earlier this week about who gets to be an entrepreneur and how do you define yourself as an entrepreneur. So one of the obstacles was that in the very early part of my journey, I did not see myself as an entrepreneur, right? I would say, oh, I have a small business, or I have a business, right? Or I have a tech company, you know, kind of just waffling. And I say that as an obstacle because it is a part of this larger conversation around who gets to do what, right? Who gets to create things, who gets to build things, who gets to innovate, right? Who has the time and the capacity and the resources to do that. And once I started understanding that I get to do those things, then that shifted the narrative for me. Other obstacles I would say are specific to being a woman and being a Black woman, right? Being in environments specifically in science and tech, where you are not necessarily seen as an authority or as knowledgeable or as a resource, and having to very quickly bring people into understanding about who I am and what my educational background is and why I am where I am and how I can be a resource, right? And helping to sort of switch that narrative from the sort of deficit mindset to, again, how I can be helpful and how I can be seen as an advocate and an ally, perhaps in spaces where women and Black women are not specifically seen as either. So that was a huge obstacle, specifically in a male-dominated space like tech and software, where you really are working with, you know, this room would be filled with just men and white men specifically, right? And having to, again, position myself to be aware that they might have biases that they aren't aware of and helping to bring them into understanding about how I need to be mentored and guided and instructed and utilized, right? So that, of course, we can collaborate and work together to build whatever the thing is. But there are obstacles across the board. You'll run into challenges with funding. You'll run into challenges with, you know, securing clients, especially in your early stages. I mean, I was fortunate in that I had my first client before I even had a company name. But there are others that, you know, really struggle with trying to figure out just how to get the thing going, how to actually do what it is that they're passionate about. And again, shameless plug, but that's why, you know, specifically in the academic settings, NSF and I-Corps is valuable. It's like really trying to figure out where the resources are and how to, again, position yourself to be receptive to those resources. And then now as a CEO, I think the biggest challenge is sleep, right? It's prioritizing rest. Everyone says to me, oh, you're the busiest person I know. And I return and say, I don't want to be the busiest person that you know, right? I want rest, I want relaxation. And so that means that I have to prioritize those things because, of course, as an entrepreneur, it's just you, right? And you may have your team and you may have the folks that work with you, but everything rests on your shoulders. And so how do you balance that? The balance between working and producing, but also prioritizing rest and relaxation. So those are some of the challenges.
Greetings. My name is Dr. Johnny Rice II. I'm the chair in the Department of Criminal Justice in the College of Behavioral and Social Sciences, and I'm also a fellow collegian. So I want to
Awesome.
welcome you. I appreciate you sharing some of your insights. I have two questions / comments, and you can give me your feedback.
Sure.
One of the things I think about is students who may have that entrepreneurial spirit in criminal justice. So, for example, there could be a student that says, Dr. Rice, I'm getting ready to get my degree. I'd like to start a corporate security firm.
Sure.
How do I go about that? Or I have an idea that I want to market, maybe an app around safety. So I'd like to get your thoughts on how to begin the conversation with students and connecting them to resources. But also you have faculty that have that entrepreneurial
Right.
spirit. And how should faculty, or what direction should faculty begin to move in a way that does not have a conflict of interest, but also allows faculty to kind of exercise their gift, meet a market need,
Right.
develop a distinct enterprise, but at the same token, garner university support, and not view it in a way that becomes a challenge to the university.
Right.
So I appreciate your thoughts on that.
Sure. So I'll tackle the latter part because I think that's directly tied to what we've been talking about today, right? From the faculty side, it really is, you are the engines of the research and the innovation that happens at your institutions, right? And so it's really just about having a conversation about what resources are available to faculty. What I find, and this might be true for my other colleagues, is that many faculty don't know where the resources are, but they don't know where the resources are because they're not asking, right? And so I think what you're highlighting is you have an idea, you're curious about how to take your innovation or the science that you're currently developing and transitioning that into something else. The first step would just be asking what resources are available on your specific campus, right? And I know specifically in our region, that NSF is extending, so that's less of a challenge now. But if you're on a campus where NSF isn't necessarily, or I-Corps isn't necessarily available, there are tons of other resources as well, right? So it's really just a matter of trying to figure out, okay, well, what is it that I'm trying to do? Which environment am I trying to do it in? And then which resources are available to me immediately so that I can actually get connected to those resources. I think for HBCUs, the beauty of it is that we talk, right? So I've met you and now you've asked a question. And so I'm going to be thinking about, okay, well, how do I get you connected to someone else that might be doing the same work that you're doing or conducting the same type of research at other institutions that are within this region, right? I think, again, from my perspective, it's about the collective and making sure that we're all connected, right? So that's on the faculty side. On the student side, it really is about the mentorship piece, right? And the mentorship piece is really having those critical conversations and helping navigate them through the ideation process. So starting with, okay, what is the idea? And then helping them using either the business model canvas or other resources that are out there. How would you approach, or another way to think of it is, what is the problem that you're trying to solve? I think just starting with that question opens up the door for really robust conversation, right? It's the question that I ask often, even as a certified product manager and project manager. When I'm talking with clients, the question is, what is the problem, right? And then sometimes, depending on the nuances, it's what is the root of the problem, right? Like what is it that you're not actually saying? What is happening in the space that you're not actually acknowledging that could potentially be contributing to whatever the pain is that you're experiencing, right? So if a student is questioning or is curious about, well, I have this idea, I'm not really sure, then I think the first step is just asking, well, what is the problem that you're trying to solve? And many times that response will open up, again, other areas where you can kind of probe a little bit more. If it's in law or criminal justice, what types of injustices are happening that you think you can impact? Why do you think you're the resource to impact that, right? What knowledge do you bring? What experiences have you had? Who do you know that you can ask additional questions? It's really sort of using the scientific method to really investigate and kind of peel back the layers to get to, again, what I always call the root. Like, what is the real reason that you're even curious about this thing, that you have this idea? And then helping them navigate through that process. I-Corps is one way to do it. There are others. We're promoting I-Corps for obvious reasons. But I think really just helping them unravel, and I'll also add getting out of your own way. A lot of times for students, it's, well, I don't know if this makes sense, or, I'm not sure if this is a good idea. It's sort of getting that part out of the way and really just talking about what is the thing that you're experiencing, and tell me a little bit more about that, right? And again, as I mentioned earlier, I always try to get a little bit more information about the student, their background, their life, and how that informs what the idea is, and then of course take the next step. So I hope that's helpful.
Yes, it's helpful, and I look forward to as Ron had mentioned. I'm also a faculty fellow, so I look forward to staying connected, and I
Yes,
appreciate the
absolutely.
feedback. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's what will do.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm just providing the service of delivering the.
Oh, sure, sure.
I just wanted to add, and Ala, I'm sorry, I'm going to put you on the spot on this, because through the I-Corps, Ala has sent us also faculty members that normally goes to her. So can you speak a little bit about that, what you do on campus with faculties, with some
Sure,
of the ideation process?
Yep.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
Yeah, absolutely. So specifically, so I primarily work with faculty members who have some sort of innovation that they've developed. And usually, so if you are an entrepreneur, if you're not a researcher, you usually there's a specific problem, like Kiana was saying, that you're trying to solve. What happens on the academic campuses, usually a researcher is doing their research and they made an invention. And now, so they have this solution and they're trying to figure out who wants it. So it happens and it's actually really difficult to find that out. And on campuses, the research is usually basic. So, a researcher figured out a way to, for example, to be able to read very, very weak signals. What can you do with it? And the possibilities are endless. And one of the applications she found out, she could detect your heart rate from a video, because on a video, every time your heart contracts, your skin color changes a little bit. And so her ability to read that very weak signal translated into this very specific application, but there are many more. How do you find that out is really, really difficult. So I-Corps is a great way of figuring out what is it, that problem that you're trying to solve. And one of the examples that they're also using is, so when you go to Home Depot and you're buying a drill to make a hole in the wall, you're not really buying a drill, you're buying that hole in the wall, right? If one of you here comes up with a different kind of gadget that can make that hole in the wall, and that gadget is cheaper, better, faster, Eric there might go and buy it, but he already has a drill. So will he? I don't know. So these are the kind of questions, the kind of solutions that when you're trying to create them, these are the kind of questions that I-Corps is teaching you to ask. And also our entrepreneurs and residents can guide you throughout the year, because I-Corps is only a 2-week program where they teach you how to think like that in terms of what is the value, what is that hole in the wall, and who is interested in that hole in the wall. For example, I'm not, because I'm not the one who drills holes in my household, but somebody else might be. Doesn't mean that other people don't want it. So there's that 2-week program. We have an upcoming cohort with Morgan State, but then we also have Kiana, who is an experienced entrepreneur. And you can come and ask her these questions. You can come and say, hey, I have an idea. A lot of times students will come and say, how to exchange textbooks at the end of the year. How do I have this furniture when I move out of the dorm? What do I do with it? So there's, you guys know what problems you're experiencing. We don't know. Even people who are out of college, 2 or 3 years, they don't know what you are experiencing today. So listen, see what people are experiencing, try to figure out what is that hole in the wall that people want. And then come talk to Kiana, come talk to other entrepreneurs and residents that's there. So send those students to us. We'll be happy to talk to them. We also have, workshops on how do I actually register a business? What steps do I need to take? And because it's really, really, it can be very intimidating. And it can be also dependent on what type of business. When you open in a restaurant, there's lots of steps that you need to take. It sounds fairly simple, but you have to go through a lot of regulatory processes before you even open it up. How do you do that? We have people who can help you navigate that, either anywhere from, a cupcake, I want to make cupcakes and deliver them, cookies, to I want to build a high-tech solution. And so we want to help not just those who build high tech, high growth startups, but also lifestyle businesses. Small businesses, they are the backbone of community. In the past decade, small businesses were the ones that created most of the new jobs in our economy. So go create them. Did I answer your question in the long-winded way? All right. So does anybody else have questions or comments? Sure. No, that's why I'm running around.
First and foremost, welcome to Coppin, another collegiate. I wear it proudly, Dr. Rice. I've heard a lot in your analogy. It's amazing how much you can learn by listening, because I never really associated the drill with you're buying a hole in the wall. That's the real outcome. That's what we're really looking for, the end effect.
Right.
And so in this scenario, NSF, I-Corps, from the innovative perspective, where you have people coming up with ideas, creations, development, seeking patents to move forward to the next phase, startup business, transitioning. I guess I-Corps actually facilitates the entrepreneurship side, helping you to do your business and to move forward and to expand.
Right.
What about the individuals who are not yet developed with the project, but has concepts? Who's there to assist them? Who's there to guide them? In 1994, I started doing education because City inspired me with education. And I started doing research, not just here in the United States, but overseas, learning different educational processes, and discovered that, okay, I coined the phrase career academics. Really, career academics translate to entrepreneurial development, because what we do, what we like to do, is what we should do for the rest of our lives. And that really translates into happy, commodities. Because when we go to work for a company because we're going for the revenue, we encounter many variables that end up turning into disparities. And we have a lot of unhappy people working in different fields who wish they had a little bit of entrepreneurial knowledge.
Right.
How do you find, or what is the avenue that you have or recommend for a person who wants to start, wants to invent, wants to create? Are there resources? Are there people? Are there mentors available?
It's a great question. And immediately I think about the Center for Entrepreneurship here on campus, right? And I think about resources at other institutions. And just personally, I'll say this is the reason that education is so important, right? Because how else would you come to know that those individuals have those ideas, right? It's different when you're in, say, a community environment and you're just talking shop and you're telling people what you think. You may get a positive response. You may get someone who'll say, oh, that's a great idea, you should pursue that. But you might also get someone who'll say, that's a dumb idea. Why would you spend time doing that, right? Right. In the community, not at an institution, hopefully not an institution. My point is, at an institution, what you have is a community of individuals who are encouraging you to think that way, who are encouraging you to say, that is a great idea. Have you considered, right? Because they might not have thought about all the other areas that you mentioned that are the complexities around building a business or taking an idea from just an idea all the way through to something that generates revenue. So I actually think that centers of entrepreneurship are really the hotbed of where you will find individuals who are mentors, who are instructors, who are professors, who are researchers, who are really investigating the essentialness of entrepreneurship, specifically in minoritized communities, but who also serve as primary resources to help those individuals transition from I just have an idea to here's how you actually take that idea through to the different phases of development. On the other side, I'll say from an economic development perspective, it's why community entities that are focused on economic development are also essential. Because not everybody is in the academic space, right? So you need those entities, you need banks, right? Specifically to run programs that help community-based entrepreneurs understand what is happening in their community and why community entrepreneurship is also a driver of economic development as much as academic entrepreneurship. You need individuals who understand community landscapes, who know specifically what's happening in those communities and can point out the individuals that are actually making innovations that are potentially necessary or beneficial to the community. So it's a both, right? It's making sure that individuals that are in these environments are aware of who is doing the work, but who they can also go to for support. I'll also say the bridge that sits in the middle are mentors, right? Starting with the youngest students all the way up to terminal students, right? If you have those experiences, if you are an entrepreneur, if you ever have had an idea to be an entrepreneur, encouraging those students to say, that is a great idea and you should consider, right? It doesn't just have to happen in one place. It can happen and it should happen across all of those places, right? If you talk about globally, which we were talking about earlier, it's really understanding what the different global contexts look like, right? Because what's happening in the United States is just one perspective, but entrepreneurship globally, specifically in the diaspora, looks different. So how can we learn from what's happening in those other countries and apply that information to what's happening either in our communities or also in our academic institutions? So for me, it really is about knowledge, knowledge sharing, knowledge retainment, and then also knowledge development, and then who owns and controls the knowledge, who shares the knowledge, who disseminates the knowledge, and who helps to foster environments where knowledge can grow. And I think that's what we're talking about here. It's what I'm always talking about, right? And what I'm always advocating. But it's not supposed to just happen in the community. It's not supposed to just happen in academia. It should be happening in both of those places and any other places where people have ideas, where they want to make investments, they want to make improvements. And the mentors, folks like you, educators, researchers, faculty, students, right? Where everyone should be responsible for saying, that is a great idea and have you considered? I hope that answers your question. I think I'm over time.
Come on, let's give Kiana a big hand. First of all, this is how we will close. I am grateful. I'm very thankful for all of those who have participated. Eric, Lindsay, Kiana, Geneva, Ala. Did I miss anybody? All of our guests. But thank you for coming. We have a huge opportunity, not just faculty, but also students. And the reason I say that, in case you did not know, for the first time in history, all of the HBCUs in Maryland now have entrepreneurship centers. That's a reality just within the past. With us coming online, we now, all of the HBCUs, and we talk. In fact, I think next week on the 6th of October, Bowie is having their entrepreneurship center. There are 55 HBCUs in the country that have entrepreneurship centers, and they've all been invited to this conference in Bowie, and we are participating. I'm moderating a panel of a few of the HBCUs next week, so we'd love for you to participate in that conference. We don't have a tech transfer office here at Coppin. We do not have an office of commercialization. We do not have an intellectual property office here, but we have friends. We have friends. So we make them all honorary Eagles, and Eagles fly high, and that's what we're going to do. Join one of our groups. If you're not part of the CEOs, students, register with the CEOs. That way you will get all of the information that we have available to us. Faculty, if you're not one of the faculty fellows, register with the faculty fellows, because we have research projects that are coming online, funded. Somebody say funded. Research projects that are coming online. Every research project that I undertake are all transdisciplinary. So if you are a dance professor, I want you on my team. I have visions of performing arts students who have galleries here in West Baltimore, but through artificial intelligence, they are open to the world, and they can raise revenue by having virtual art exhibits right here in West Baltimore, but doing it around the world. Those are the kind of innovative ideas that I want, regardless of your discipline. So get connected. We're going to push the narrative here at Coppin. I've been here 26 years, and we're going to push it. Say, well, why don't we have this kind of infrastructure? Because we haven't pushed for it. Now we have an opportunity. Faculty, get on board. If the demand is there, if the energy is there, I just believe it will happen. It's unavoidable if we push the narrative. So that's what we're doing. I would love for you to get on board. We have food. We have food for you. And maybe our guests, if you can stick around for just a few minutes, just take a group at a table. They can answer questions one-on-one. They can give you their contact information. But please feel free to grab a box lunch, have a seat, eat it here. You don't have to rush out. Get questions asked. If there's somebody in particular you want to connect with, make sure you do so. Some of our students had to go to class, so they left early, but make sure that you please partake of the food before you go. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.